Are you tired of the comparisons to WCW with TNA? Are you tired of the fact that people say, well, you know what, that TNA just wants to bring in WWE former guys because they are just former WWE guys? Or is it especially with this whole diverse lineup that we're seeing at Turning Point? This is what this is what it's all about. This is why fans are flocking to TNA. This is why it's truly an alternative where it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B, and a little bit of C, that there's something in it for everyone.
Well, I mean, I always thought that was really the strong point of WCW in the glory years. The fact that we could roll out an opening match maybe that featured either the X Division wrestlers or possibly a little international flair from somebody from Japan and Mexico. The fact that we could, fill in with more of those X Division type cruiserweight guys, as we called them back in the day in WCW. Follow that up with, some pretty solid tag team division that we had with Steiners and Outsiders and the like. Always had that big name main event, big name feel of a main event pay-per-view match with WCW. So in terms of tiring of the comparisons, not really. No, I don't think so. I think obviously what we've done is we've taken some of those recognizable names, something that you definitely need to deal with, because not everybody that tunes in to the show on Spike TV is as fanatic of a fan as you guys are, is as much in the know as many of the people on the internet. I think that's one of the things we oftentimes lose sight of, because we are so into professional wrestling and we're so into TNA and following the WWE that we just have that presumption that everybody that's watching is kind of in the same boat. Not the case when you've got over 2 million people watching the TNA show. So I think to continue that kind of an audience, and also in an effort and in a hope to try and gain on that audience and build on those numbers, you can't strictly take a roster of unknown guys, in spite of the fact that they may just be the greatest workers you've ever seen. They may just go out there and tear it up with the proverbial 5-star matches left and right. You can't just have a roster of incredible workers. You need to have that group of people that have that Q factor, as I guess they say in the TV and movie business, that recognizability. And I think that's one of the things that the TNA in going forward here is going to do. It's to use those kind of names, also to link them with somebody like a Samoa Joe, to put that Scott Hall, Kevin Nash team together, have Samoa Joe come in. And I think if you've seen the way that that's been booked in the past couple of weeks, I think it's been a real positive. You see that Hall and Nash came out. They talked about having that secret partner. Boom, Samoa Joe out on the end, and you saw Samoa Joe come out and just kick some butt. Not being in any kind of a secondary role to them, almost the direct opposite. It's those guys setting the table and Samoa Joe batting cleanup. You look on that opposite side and you see Kurt Angle, and just a really interesting story for me. And as an announcer, one of the things that I'm always looking for is that story that's interesting to me, because I know if it's interesting to me, it's going to be an easier story to tell, and a story that I think the people at home, when they're watching the Impact broadcast, that they'll have a better chance to grasp onto and see the direction. When you see the story with AJ Styles getting the nod of approval from Christian Cage a couple of weeks ago to go ahead and make those deals and naming in AJ's mind, naming him the captain, and then AJ going off and working the deal with Kurt Angle, and actually Karen Angle behind the scenes, Karen brokering the deal with AJ so the Styles and Tomko came out and helped Kurt retain the title. Now you have that great mix and that intrigue involved with the Christian Coalition, the Angle Alliance, Kurt Angle, Christian Cage, AJ Styles, who, let's face it, guys, is, just an incredible athlete and really is one of those great, workers that I was talking about earlier. And then factor in somebody like Tomko, and I'm still waiting to find out an update on the injury that Tomko recently suffered. I've been sending some emails today, got back from the holiday to find out that he's torn a muscle, so I'm not exactly certain what the situation is with Tomko, but hopefully he's going to be, okay to go at Turning Point. I just think in watching the strides that Tomko has made in the past couple of years, this is a completely different guy than was just that wrestler that was in, WWE a few years back. The level of his work, especially in terms of what he's picked up over in Japan, has just to me, really, it's really opened my eyes. And I have to tell you, I am just the biggest fan of his for both his in-ring and also he's one of those guys that really lives this. You listen to the schedule that Tomko has, these flights that he has to Tokyo, and he'll fly over to Tokyo, work a couple of shows over there in Japan, and then get back on a plane, come back over, do a pay-per-view and a couple of TV shows for us. And we'll be talking to him after an event, and he's headed directly to the airport to get back on a plane to go back to Tokyo for a couple more weeks and continue the tour. It's a level of dedication that was certainly there going back to the era of the 80s and the 90s. I think of people like Dr. Death, Steve Williams. I think of people like Terry Gordy. Prior to that, I think of somebody like a Bruiser Brody, a Stan Hansen, who really relied on those Japan tours for a lot of their income, but then they were able to also supplement it by working a full-time U.S. schedule. And that's really a commitment, and that's something that Tomko needs to be congratulated on. And the fallout factor from that commitment has been that level of work that's terrific. So I really like the six-man tag that headlines the pay-per-view this Sunday with Styles, Tomko, and Angle against Hall, Nash, and Joe for many, many reasons.
That a lot of the people here in Western New York went to several Best Buys, went to several of the different malls here in Western New York. They are not only sold out, but they are on back order of TNA Year 1, the retrospective of the first year in Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. TNA in the top 5 in Yahoo searches. So through the past couple of days, especially not only with TNA, just the initials, but the merchandise. I know this upcoming Friday, TNA No Surrender, the 07 installment's going to be on Friday at all the FYE locations. The brand new Meltdown DVD is on sale. It really gives me a great deal of gratitude when I see wrestling fans in our area, Mike, and obviously, you know the Buffalo and the Western New York area quite well, the legendary Dennis DiPaolo, Elio DiPaolo, the entire DiPaolo family, the list goes on from all the great wrestlers that have come out from our area. But seeing wrestling fans fight over a remaining TNA DVD in a store, it really puts a smile on my face. It sort of makes me a little bit alarmed to a certain extent, wondering, do I step in as the Earl Hebner of sorts? Do I sort of intermediate between everyone? Or do I just let the kids go at it and fight over the last TNA DVD? So I think that, especially with the success you guys have had of this DVD, let the fans know, what was it like going back to the roots for TNA, going back to year 1? You mentioned at the early part of the interview, myself, you, Don West, having drinks at some of the drinking establishments down in Nashville, Tennessee, that home-cooked feeling, that down-home feeling, it's something that can never be replaced. We'll always look back on those years with fondness, and really a lot of the fans that are just tuning in right now, this is an opportunity for them to realize what those glory days were all about.
Why do people get hooked by the wrestling business, and why do so many people either stick with the wrestling business throughout their lives, throughout their careers, and why do so many people have a difficult time stepping away from the wrestling business when the time is no longer there? It's obviously a combination of factors. I'm sure, that overall love of the business, that love of competing, that love of going out in front of a live crowd. You got to put all those things right at the top of the list. But to me, the one that surpasses all the others is the camaraderie that you have. Mosh, you've had a chance to experience it a little bit, a couple of times when you've hung out with the TNA family, and it's that ability to go back week after week, show after show, leave it all out there, put on a heck of a show for everybody, but that camaraderie that you have, the relationships that you form, the respect that you have for the performers that the TNA has, that's really what makes the wrestling business so difficult to walk away from. The TNA family, it's really unlike anything I've ever been involved with. WCW certainly was great. It was an incredible run. But I think one of the things that we have, and in the early years of WCW, you sort of had it when it was that underdog that was knocking off the established number one force in the industry. You had it a little bit with WCW, and certainly the group getting together and working for that overall good, it was there. I sense, however, because TNA was such a big underdog, unlike WCW, when WCW was going head-to-head with WWF back in the day, WCW always was doing some pretty decent TV ratings going in, and they were established, and they were owned by Ted Turner, and they were on Turner Broadcasting, they were on TNT and TBS.